I, Devanshi Thakuria,
And I, Radhika Jhamaria,
are honored to extend a very warm welcome to all of you to IIID's first ever India International Design Conclave 2023 Jaipur. This being the golden year where IIID celebrates its 50 glorious years, we are honored to have each and everyone you here for this momentous occasion. JRC is privileged to host you all at the IIDC 2023. IIDC 2023 aims to bring together experts, stalwarts, and visionaries in the field of interior design to share their insights, trade partners showcasing latest products, artisans demonstrating unique art forms, and students benefiting from these interactive ways of learning.
IIID, Indian Institute of Interior Designers, was founded in 1972 to establish good professional and trade practices and ethics amongst its members, to enhance the role of the interior design profession and exchange know-how with similar organizations within the country and abroad. Today, with over 8,000 members in 32 chapters and centers across India, IIID is true representative of the interior design fraternity within the nation as well as internationally.
JRC Jaipur Regional Chapter was founded in 2008 with less than 50 members, and today, with pride we can say we have 400 plus members across the city. Thanks to its founding members, past chairpersons, along with the past managing committees. JRC has over the years formed a legacy to be continued.
Before we begin, kindly ensure your mobile devices are set to silent mode to minimize disruptions. We also encourage you to actively participate in the discussions and the Q&A sessions to make this event meaningful. We would now commence with the inaugural ceremony. I would like to request IIID Chairman and IIDC Convener, Architect Sheetal Agarwal, to escort our esteemed Chief Guest, IIID President, Architect Sarosh Wadia, on the stage. I would also request JRC Chairman-elect Architect Kshitij Manu to escort IIID Honorary Secretary Architect Shamini Shankar Jain on stage.
May I now request GRC Honorary Secretary Architect Ashish Kala to escort our guest of honor, Sri N.C. Goel, Director, Rajasthan International Center, who has been extremely helpful in allowing GRC to organize this first ever IIDC 2023 at this newly built complex, which has been designed by our very own founder, GRC Chairman, Architect Pramod Jain.
I now request JRC Chairman and IIDC Convener Architect Sheetal Agarwal to kindly felicitate our Chief Guest, IIID President Architect Sarosh Wadia. I now request JRC Chairman-elect Architect Kshitij Manu to felicitate IIIT Honorary Secretary Architect Shamini Shankar Jain. I would like to request JRC Honorary Secretary, Architect Ashish Kala, to felicitate our guest of honor, Shri N.C. Goyal, Director, Rajasthan International Center. May I request the esteemed dignitaries to please proceed for the customary lighting of the lamp, followed by the national anthem.
जनगण मन अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड़ उत्कल गंगा विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उच्चल जलधि तरंगा तव शुभ नामे जागे तव शुभ आशीष मांगे गाहे तव जय गाथा जन गण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे जय हे जय हे जय जय जय
I now request IIIT President Architect Sarosh Wadia to please hoist the IIIT flag. A round of applause, please. Thank you, sir. May I now request the IIIT JRC Chairman and Convener IIDC, Architect Sheetal Agarwal, to kindly hoist the IIDC JRC flag. Thank you all. May I now request IID Chairman and IIDC Convener, Architect Sheetal Agarwal, to kindly deliver his address to the gathering.
Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, please bear with my voice. Members of the Indian Institute of Interior Designers, IIID, it is with great pleasure and immense pride that I stand before you today as we inaugurate the India International Design Conclave 2023. This momentous occasion marks the realization of a thought that emerged in September 2022, a thought to create a platform where designer and design student can come together to showcase their work, exchange ideas, and explore new possibilities in the field of design. And where better to bring this vision to life than the enchanting, glorious and historic pink city of Jaipur. The India International Design Conclave serves as a melting pot for visionaries, artists, architects, and designers from every corner of our great nation. It provides a stage for designers to showcase their brilliance and talent to a global audience. The expo area, a vibrant space teeming with creativity, will be the heart of this conclave, where designers will display their creations, share their stories, and inspire one another. Our conclave has been graced with a lineup of speakers who are pioneers in their respective fields, visionaries who have shaped the landscape of architecture and design, and experts who possess an unparalleled wealth of knowledge. They come from different corners of the world, each carrying a unique perspective and a passion for their craft. Architect Colin Ball, who is present here, from London. Architect Sanjay Puri from Mumbai. Architect Carl Almeida from Bangkok. And Architect Alessandro Villa from Milan. I extend my heartfelt gratitude to all NEC members and my fellow chairpersons for their unwavering support and dedication in making this conclave a reality. Your commitment to excellence in design and your passion for nurturing emerging talent have been instrumental in bringing us together today. Last but not the least, I invite each and every one of you to IIDC. We have planned enlightening sessions, art installations, workshops and exhibitions, and admire the remarkable work of students and designers and connect with the fellow professionals. And at last, I want to extend my full enthusiasm to support, to say all my team work day and night to make this happen. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. May I now call upon the guest of honor, Shri N.C. Goyal, to say a few words.
To this conference. This is Rajasthan International Center, which has been conceived on lines of India International Center, New Delhi, and it is just beginning to start its activities. This center was inaugurated by our Honorable Chief Minister on 17th of April, and this is one of the earliest programs that is happening here. So I am thankful to JRC, Jaipur Regional Chapter, particularly its President, Sheetal Agarwal, architect. And I'm very glad to see that this national level conference is happening here. And both the conference and the center get a good marketing advantage by coming together. I have been told that this is the 15th year of JRC and 50th year of IID. So I congratulate all of you. I would like to extend my best wishes for the success of this IIDC 2023. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I now request our esteemed chief guest, IIIT President Architect Sarosh Wadia, to deliver his presidential address and declare IIDC 2023 open.
Good afternoon, Jaipur. Oh, I couldn't hear you. Good afternoon, Jaipur. In the 50th year of IIID, established in 1972, this year is very special. Not only because it's the 50th year, but because I have visited at least 7 this type of exhibitions and conclaves, and it has been the maximum ever in IID history. So respected sir, NC Goyal ji, जब मैं बात करता हूँ Goyal surname की, तो I'm indebted to a lot of Goyals, including my 2 teachers. One was the principal of my school, one of the strictest principal, Mr. Goyal, and one was our teacher. So जब भी मैं Goyals की बात करता हूँ, तो it's a different level of respect that automatically comes with the surname. So welcome, sir. Thank you for being there with us. Our busy chairperson Sheetal ji and his whole team who has put this up for all of you, and really hard work. I couldn't believe that he just declared it, didn't wait for any permissions, let me tell you. He just declared it, went ahead with it, and today you see what has happened. So now, what has brought Jaipur up to here? Do you know the oldest member of Jaipur? The oldest IID member of Jaipur is Mr. Arun Kausambiwal. He was the first member of Jaipur. But when the chapter was established and announced, and the charter was given on 14 January 2008, it is one of the youngest chapters here, because a lot of large chapters had happened before that. 2008 was a late start, but it jumped to a level because in the 3rd year it had its national conference. NatCon happened, IID NatCon happened in Jaipur, in the 3rd year of the existence of the chapter. Yes, yes. And let us see who began it. It all began with the founder, chairman, 2008 to 10, Mr. Pramod Jain. A big hand to him. You're sitting in a space designed by him. This beautiful building of the government of Rajasthan was designed by him, and probably it was destined that the first large this kind of a function would happen with the IIID, who he was a founder chairman for. So please give him a big hand. And then came Mr. Sanjay Kothari, who is there with us today. And he gave Jaipur the first NatCon in the, I think, 3rd or 4th year of its being. So very fast NatCon. So he actually, his footsteps, our present chairman is following, doesn't wait for anybody. So Sanjay Kothari's term was from 2010 to 2015, after which my dear friend and co-singer, Mr. Dheeraj Jamaria, took over from 2015 to 17. And then came in my dear friend, Mr. Rajendra Puri is there. I saw him here. So Rajendra Puri had a term which was also a very successful term, which was 2017 to 19. And then came Anshuman Sharma, now a NEC member, 2019 to 21, where it set up collaborations with institutes, education was his forte, and it still is, because now he is a NEC member looking after education, professional ethics, and the whole committee is doing very well. And then came in our Sheetal ji. Though the name is Sheetal, he is not Sheetal at all. Today, because of his request, I am being here. Somebody else is suffering somewhere. So, I am being here just on his request. So, congratulations to Team Jaipur for leading this. When we took over in November 22, 11th November 22, when this NEC took over after the elections, we declared a theme of design synergy. What is synergy? Design, most of you know what design is. So what is synergy? Synergy is the coming together of two or more than two organizations and working towards a goal to achieve more than what each of them could have individually achieved. So this is our theme. And from the beginning, our theme has been extremely successful. And I'll tell you how. Within days, I think we took over on 11th and 13th, I get a call from Raipur, IIA Raipur, our first organization to invoke this synergy was IIA. And we were invited as the NEC to have a meeting there at Raipur because they were having the NatCon at Raipur. And that was a very, very important point. So our second NEC was in Raipur, along with the IIA National Council. Now imagine both 100-year-old body and 150-year-old body coming together at Raipur. Probably IIA didn't even know our theme was design synergy, and it happened. And after that, lot of collaborations happened, and we have formed a group called Satsang in 2019, which is the IGBC, the ISHRE, IPA, FSAI, and CREDAI, all five together, and now even Skill India wants to join us. So all these five are together, and we are doing programs together, which ISHRE has taken lead in. IGBC has also taken a lead in. And probably two programs will happen, one in Gujarat, one probably here. IGBC is looking forward to having a program in Jaipur. We want to unite all five bodies on the same platform. So we are actually, ISHRE is coordinating the whole event. It's again a synergy event where five organizations come together and then we work together, take back, all five take back something. So IGBC has already opened its memberships first time in its history for IID members at a discount. You'll be soon getting a circular from me about the whole working of that membership. IGBC membership is a little costly. So now they have opened up a 5-year membership for any IID member who wants to become IGBC member. Similarly, IPA will open up. We are trying that ISHRE would also do the same. And we are going to open up our membership also similarly to all the qualified people or people working hand in hand with IIID. We are going to open out our affiliate membership at a discount because they are co-organizations. But we first want to come together on the same platform, see each other, how they react, and then work together. So today's strength is being together. Probably IIA realized it even before we could approach them. So after that, I got invited to other IIA functions also, including Nagpur, and had a very good energy and synergy with the IIA. Similarly, all other organizations are also interacting. ISHRE is already doing programs with us in all chapters, Ahmedabad, Mumbai, Surat. They've already had programs together with IIID. Now, this was about design synergy. What else is happening? So what else is happening is that we are progressing towards a little regulatory body for IIID. Now, what is a regulation? we all want to stay away from regulations. The moment regulations come in imposed by authority, we all find ways to break away from rules. That's our psyche, I think. India is, famous for breaking away from the law. So how do we do this? Because if we go the council way, the Architects Council way, probably very little can be achieved, even if we go to 20,000 and make a council and convince the government, which might take up to 10 years. Will the people get any benefit? So then what are we doing? Are we only working for ourselves? So if you're going to work for ourselves, then we had on 22nd of December at 9 o'clock in the night, we started a meeting of our National Executive Council, which got over at 2 o'clock in the night, because 22nd December is our establishment day. That is the day the Golden Jubilee began. So we met in Goa, and we discussed this regulation, whether we want a law for interior designers or we want to really regulate the profession. So what came out from that was very simple. We have to self-regulate. We can't expect somebody to regulate for us. So let us project in every city that we exist in, let us project it as a group of designers specializing in interiors, which would give more than what anybody else could give. Rather than pointing fingers at people that, "Arey bhai, falana qualified nahi hai, arey isko to degree nahi hai." Instead of that, supposing we self-regulate and we show the public that we are the people to reckon with, our traders are the best in trade practices in the city. Our designers are doing this kind of practice, and these are the minimum that a designer will give you. Can we do that? So that is a white paper we are going to come out with we added a chapter also. We added a center just last week, the Hubli Dharwad Center. So we are 33 in number now. So now we are moving towards a self-regulatory scene where we might long-term think of a council, but short-term, within 2 years, we want to achieve this goal where IID name is reckoned with the best in design. So this is where, again, we'll have to work together. Now, how is this IIDC, India International Design Conclave, which Jaipur has done, also synergy? It synergizes with the trade. Just now, during the visit to all the exhibitors, I found that most of them were our trade members. So this is a time when they will actually come across, they have something to say to us, which we'll listen to, because it's a symbiotic relationship. We need them, they need us. So it's the best kind of synergy that we could have. I wish it would grow, and it is growing, because I told you this is the 7th event like this that I'm event. But this is different because it's in a different venue. I'm very happy that Sheetal insisted and probably did it here in spite of whatever difficulties he had. And I'm very glad that I'm here before you. And with this, I take your leave. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarosh sir, for all the initiatives and bringing to the table our own history as a narrative in your address. You left us all nostalgic. I would now request the volunteers to kindly bring in the mementos on the stage. Thank you all. It was indeed a felicitous and auspicious inaugural ceremony. Further, I hope all of you take back lots of meaningful memories from these 2 days at IIDC 2023. To deliver a vote of thanks, I would request immediate past Chairman JRC and NEC member Architect Anshuman Sharma to please come up on the dais.
Thank you, Devanshi. Ladies and gentlemen, guests, esteemed designers, creative minds, very, very warm welcome to all of you to the first India International Design Conclave 2023, organized by the Indian Institute of Interior Designers. It is with immense pleasure and excitement that we have gathered here today to inaugurate this national level event at the prestigious Rajasthan International Center in the vibrant city of Jaipur. I would like to extend my deepest gratitude to IIID President Architect Sarosh Wadi, IIID Honorary Secretary, our very own Architect Shamini Shankar Jain, respected members of the IIID National Executive Committee, chairpersons who've flown from different parts of India, gracious presence at the IIDC. Your valuable time and esteemed presence the significance of this event. On behalf of IIID JRC, I would also like to extend a heartfelt gratitude to our sponsor, principal sponsor, Bollywood, and co-sponsors, exhibitors, students, and heads of departments. We are immensely grateful for the opportunity you have provided us to host this prestigious event. I would extend my deepest gratitude to Mr. N.C. Goyalji, Director, Rajasthan International Center, for gracing us with his presence as guest of honor. So, Sarosh sir said something that, Sheetal is not Sheetal, and, he did not seek permission. So that is, we consider IIID as a huge family where, the NEC is considered as parents and chapters are different. Most lovable chapter, and sometimes the kids they do that. One has this zid over the NEC, and it has been a cliche which we've been saying for years now, that ho jayega. That is the Jaipur thing, sir. So we always thought that ho jayega, and I must congratulate and I'm short of words because, just in a span of 30 days, Sheetal and this entire committee has put on this fabulous, over the 2 days, you realize, how much hard work it takes. So, yeah, so, it goes without saying that this is going to be something which when you go back, you will cherish for years to come. Last but not the least, I want to express my gratitude to every member of the team, regardless of your role or responsibility. Your individual contribution and unwavering dedication have been the backbone of this conclave. It is through your collective efforts, collaborative spirit, and commitment to excellence that we have been able to create an event that has exceeded all expectations. May I now request all of you to join us for a cup of tea. Thank you so much.
For your kind information, there is a workshop happening on the lower ground floor on clay modeling. Whoever is keen to learn a new craft may join in. Lunch will be served from 1:15 p.m. onwards in the food court on the lower ground floor level. Please join us sharp at 2:15 here in the auditorium for the keynote session by Mr. Colin Ball. Thank you. Hope to see you soon.
With a remarkable career spanning 27 years in the field of lighting design, Colin brings a wealth of experience and expertise to his role. His passion for innovation and sustainable lighting solutions is evident in his work on World Heritage venues and cutting-edge science institutes. He's an accomplished lighting director and a driving force behind BDP's award-winning lighting team. With his current work involves developing innovative techniques for lighting within the World Heritage venues, plus carbon exemplary projects for cutting-edge science institutes. Colin has developed a series of lectures that look at how light in faith is represented from historical, religious, and psychological perspectives in architecture and contemporary art, which he has delivered across the UK, Europe, East and West Asia, and the Americas. An organizer of a London Light and Film Festival, Colin also delivers talks on parallels of lighting between films, theatre, and architecture. An accomplished speaker, Colin has presented his lectures at renowned conferences and symposiums. AILE Palm Springs captivating diverse topics. He has authored a number of articles on elements of these lectures for national as well as international professional magazines. Colin Ball's expertise and passion for lighting design have been recognized through numerous prestigious awards and accolades. Notably, the Theatre Royal Jury Land Project earned multiple honors, AIA Light and Architecture Design Awards, and Build Back Better Awards. His work on also received esteemed recognition. Thank you. Over to you.
Hello, can everybody hear me? No. Is that on? Are both microphones on? Hello. Can I get a hello back, please? And I'll also apologise in advance. I'm responsible for having the auditorium darkened. So just as the previous speaker said, we're here after lunch. And of course, this is the sleepy part. But that's one of the reasons why there is audience participation that you can look forward to. Can I get a row? And a series of beautiful images that I have detailed charts and graphs and everything devoted to very proper studying. And I will expect people to understand. So please take notes after I've dimmed the lights on you. Haha. So, light and health, everyone knows about sustainability, and you've probably heard on the news that your iPhone is keeping you awake at night. Now, these are some of the details that I've been working with for many years. But 27 years ago, I was an architect, or I was just finishing my architecture degree. And most of my tutors in London were Zaha Hadid graduates or a lot of deconstructivists. And they all wanted crazy, strange, angular buildings. And I found it very difficult to be an architect with this course and what they wanted. But it was in my final year that I actually visited this museum, the Kimball Museum, in Texas, and discovered the work of Louis Kahn. Now, also as a practicing Buddhist and a meditation tutor, I found in the words and the poetry of Louis Kahn that here was architecture that I could relate to. It wasn't about fractured, broken images. This was actually about people, presence, space, thought. And this is what I found very beautiful was that it wasn't just his words or in his buildings. He's talking about how do people feel. And this is something which is what I'm always asking. It's my first question on every project. How does someone feel? When and where are they experiencing this space? And what are they doing? So it produces some surprising results. But after 27 years, I think I've built up enough of a catalogue to justify some of the things I do. But, so can anyone guess what this is? Public park? Does it look like an office building to you? We only lit the entire ground floor to 5 lux. So this is a zero carbon building where the actual construction of the building, the timber, the steel joints, everything is recycled. But because of its angle and its curve towards sunlight, it's specifically designed to absorb heat in the winter, but the same angle and curve of the building blocks that heat in the summer. So the whole ground floor is a winter garden. So I said to the client, well, why not light it as a garden? And so, yes, there are strict codes that you have to deliver, but if you can use the lowest code, the darkest code, you're saving energy. So through demonstrating that we can actually use a fraction, maybe 20% of the light that we currently use everywhere, because our bodies, the way we experience space is not how codes and energy codes are written. There's something very different going on. But my zero carbon experience enabled me to win the ability to work on this project, which the Enterprise Centre, the University of East Anglia, is the most prominent university that publishes global data on climate change. So the university wanted to put its money where its mouth is and say, we are genuine about sustainability. So they wanted this building to be the most sustainable building still in 20 years' time after it's completed. So everything about this building has been assessed for its carbon. Even we, the design team, had to record our mode of travel to the site. And we, of course, were encouraged to cycle as much as possible. But every part of this building is absorbing carbon as they build it. But also, sustainability is as much people and local craftsmanship. This is a 1,000-year-old tradition of thatching, of the local cottage industry, that the architects developed a modern cassette method so that the straw cladding of the building is easily replaced every 8 years. So you don't have to re-thatch the whole building. You can just go up and just change one cassette at a time. But the innovation of this project, which came from the client, was a look at what the carbon footprint is over a 100-year period. But not just the building as it's constructed, but also the building in use. So here's a table that's looked at the physical distance of every element that's gone into that building. So the trees over there were tested for their structural properties. The turkey farm feathers were tested for their insulation properties. So, as you can see, everything about this building is it does not use energy. So, first of all, if you're going to lower light or you want to understand how lighting works, you have to understand daylight, first of all. So just as the previous building, we orientated the building to absorb heat and light in the winter, but block. I think I was very lucky to be there at the precise time that the shadowing of the window in summer is actually over the window. You know, that's our daylighting system working right there. But there's a side effect to this. Can you see where the light fittings are? Very minimal. The first thing I said to the architect is, yes, you can use LEDs. You'll get about 10-15% energy saving. But the most important thing, if you want to save energy, is don't turn the lights on. You're not using any energy then. But embodied carbon, don't install any lights. So of course, I've got a design fee to charge, so I'm telling my client I'm going to do nothing. No, I'm going to have to work harder to actually deliver the required lighting levels, uniformities, in order for the building to be usable as an office and an education space. So there's plenty of light in there, it's just embedded in a very sensitive way. And the most important thing is that light is only used and where it needs to be. So this is, even after campaigning for 8 years on low energy, this is still the only building I've been able to get the permission where the building argues with you about you want to switch the lights on, but the building says, no. You've got enough daylight in here, you don't get no extra energy. And that thoughtfulness was because the belief in the building was our belief in light and our belief that we need light. Because we've been hypnotized for over 100 years by a very profitable industry. You're being sold electricity all the time. So you're being told you need light, more light, more light. But you don't. And this is something that I've got nearly 30 years of evidence to show. So yes, you do use light. There's a reduction of shadow. We have elements of the building where we allow the daylight in that's beautifully refracted by recycled paper. All of the inside finishes are recycled paper. But during the day, this is the extent of energy being used if people are present. If no one's present in the room, the lights switch off. But everyone gets a choice to switch the lights on if daylight has reduced. But at night, you can see this building with very little light in it. It's glowing. There's a big difference between what we need during the day and what we need at night. So during the day, and we understand how much light we have, so we use it. And yes, we separate it from its properties for heat. But as you can see here, yes, there's 2 lamps on. There are people studying writing around one table. We're lighting to the furniture. And there is actually a daylight accent right at the end there to stop the end of the corridor looking dark. But at night, and again, because embodied carbon is so important, there is no copper, there are no services in the ceiling devoted to the lighting. So all the energy has been saved on the ceiling installation. But one system, the emergency lighting for fire safety, has to be kept. So we used that one circuit to provide just a base ambience in the middle of the room, or the middle of the whole building. But emergency lighting only needs 1 lux. So why do we need 100 lux to walk down a corridor? We need 100 lux because in daytime, there's probably a lot of daylight. There's 5,000 lux. So you need a minimum of 100 if you step out of daylight. But that means all over the world, everyone is expending energy to put 100 lux on the floor. But I'll show you. How do you experience architecture? Do you walk around an architectural building like this? Oh, I can't see. Oh, it's all gone black. Oh. Ah, now I can see you. That's not how we walk around our architecture. We walk around our architecture, we view, we look up, we look around. So at night, we don't have daylight to compete with. So we can actually reduce all of our energy by 80% because we're not competing with daylight. So at night, you're walking around. Yes, there is a presence of shadow, of darkness, but if you need to have the light on, it's there for where you're working. And as you walk around the space, the photographer had to run quite a lot just to get this last image, to keep the lights working. So we have lit what you need for desk lighting, and we understand that your eye adjusts to light all the time. So there's nothing in the ceiling but furniture. The light follows you where you are. And we've kept post-occupancy surveys, and we've actually had people that describe that they get affected by seasonal affective disorder. You know, in England we have very grey winters, and they say that they no longer have sleeping problems because they're entirely tuned to natural daylight rhythms. So here's your first graph. This is not energy use, it's actually the inverse. This is the percentage cost of lighting over a 2-year period. So you can see that every time a new technology appears, it saves energy. It makes lighting cheaper and cheaper. So we used to use very little light 200 years ago because whale oil was really expensive. But now we just have LEDs, it's electricity, it's cheaper. So we just put light everywhere because we don't have to think about the energy. But this was the concept generated for me from an advert from 1920 that shows office lighting is just a pool of light, and they needed 30 lux in 1920. They could afford to produce. But now, energy codes, everyone just we need 10 times more light. Have we evolved in a different way over the last 100 years? So, a lot of studies over the last 15 years show that our perception of darkness, especially in the Western world, we have this idea that light is good, your future is bright, your future is a very different meaning in this idea of there being light or there being darkness. But darkness is also a luxury environment. It's comfortable, it's intimacy, it's warmth. So much of what I was is when you get too much light, you get brightness, you get glare, you get uncomfortable. So there is a sweet balance, but warmth, concentration, and privacy that we don't get a great deal of. I know in India yet, but there are codes that are coming out from America, world standard, which actually look at specific wavelengths of light, and that we're getting healthy amounts of light during the day. Again, this whole the cycle of your phones keeping you awake. There is also a minimum level of the same blue light that we want in the morning or during the day. So that's now being written into codes. But there is a problem with that because they're expecting that we get a lot of simulated daylight during the day, but we would need twice as much lighting, twice as much energy to get that healthy level of light into your eye. So the one is that you can't use effect for your eyes during the day. You need to go outside. You need to experience real daylight. So this is some of the tests that we did, but we've been able to demonstrate that in actual fact, we need to start including the amount of light that we actually get from our screens. Have a think about this. How much light enters your eye every day? Who's on the screen? Come on, admit it. No, you see, this is the issue. We're constantly in this light, but we need to be more in daylight. And of course, that's me saying here, in a darkened auditorium, it's important to be in daylight, particularly this time of the day. But of course, daylight has many different properties. And again, what is the here you get into some interesting questions, but also what is the angle of daylight? So usual engineering for buildings assumes a flat looks like this. It has all this, and actually specific wavelengths, we actually get this cool blue light in the morning, or northern light, blue sky, sunlight that gets redder and redder in the evening. So this is a natural cycle that our eyes have evolved towards. So when we say light and vision, we're actually talking about your eyes acting in two different ways, scotopic and photopic. During the day, we're in photopic vision, bright light, we can see things in detail, but at night, we go into scotopic vision, we're at the periphery of our eyes, and our eyes have become 1,000 times more sensitive to light. You can see stars. Tiny amount of light, you can see it. But from the periphery, it's not here in the middle. But the wavelengths and the different colours of light interact differently in different parts of your eye. So what we need for vision and what we need to read is all about the fovea, is the centre of your eye. This is where most of your colour vision is. Now, first part of audience participation. Can everyone just hold out their thumb? Everyone hold out your thumb. Yes. Now you look at your thumb. That's the only part of your vision that's in focus. Everything else is a cloud. But your fovea goes like this. And basically fills in the detail. The rest of your eyesight is memory, assumption, and projection. Oops, sorry, I'll go back one. There's another property that we found with the different wavelengths of light, and you'll see there's a dotted line there at 496. We discovered the most ancient cells of the eye. Behind the retina is a link to melatonin cycle. The hormones of your brain are being triggered. And that's light and health. Your phone keeps you awake. You need more light in the morning. It's all about that, like a blue sky. So that gives us a circular rhythm to our body. But where we want warm light at certain times of the day, we want cool light. Because we want to suppress melatonin, become alert in the morning, but then not disturb melatonin when it starts building up in the evening. And that's this running cycle that we have. But it's been interesting for me that a lot of this research has been published in the last 15 years. I've been experimenting on people and on light for many years. So this has become published through scientific studies. Diagram I used to use for my staff, that when we used a different lamp, what did you use the lamp for? So, and where did you place it? So the general idea was that your bright lamps that were the most efficient at the time you put at high level, you basically simulated a sky during the day and you gradually moved towards like candlelight. Go figure. We've evolved our eyesight over thousands of years for sky during the day and we sit around a fire at night. Our eyesight is demanding that from us. But that has now evolved into, let's say, this diagram where, again, your horizon line, your fovea is moving horizontally. So in actual fact, the more light you put vertically, or you have daylight over here, you need a lot of light to contrast your daylight, but you need lots of light just on one wall. You don't need lots of light across the floor. So this colour shift that's been published, the importance of blue in the morning to the candlelight in the evening. Again, this is something that when I look back at my portfolio, I thought, my word, I've been doing this for years. But here's the science. Audience participation. Is this image. The answer is, there's no colour here. What you're looking at is light refracting through fur, water, ice, and air. There is no colour in that image. Now, this is the interesting thing. Your eye removes the colour of light. This is something that I've learned over many years. As soon as you project lots of colour into a space, your eye says, okay, I understand that, I know what that is, it removes it. So suddenly you have blue or yellow light in your space, disappears. So been using that to understand that if we have daylight coming into a space, it's balance, a bit of daylight, contrast it with the candlelight, and then throughout the day, with 50% opera gauze on the definition of the room, the entire room can appear or disappear, but not a single person notices the colour. Only you and I can see the colour because our cameras are not as sensitive as our eye. Our eye is always deleting information. So you've got to keep things changing or moving or give contrast. If you know someone's eye, where it's moving, give them a surprise. So warmth in a cool space. Again, I did explain, London winters are actually the darkest and the greyest in the world, because it's not just about how far north you are, it's also about the level of cloud cover. So here you see we're simulating daylight as it penetrates through a historic railway, but vertically on the elevation, we are just putting warm white into the wood so that the vibration, the colour of the wood resonates with the colour on it. Now this is something which we found has a startling effect. And again, this is an idea of the horizon line. You see that this space, London light is very grey, it's very dull, even on a bright day. So we needed to warm up this space. Paddington, interestingly, this space was first designed in 1998 so that you could check your bags in for the high-speed train. You were going to Heathrow Airport, you could just check your bags in and they would take them to the airport for you. But then, of course, something came along called the internet and pre-booking, so it was no longer needed for this high-speed train. So it was gradually converted to a retail space, which wasn't working very well because it was so grey, it was so miserable. So as a lighting detail, we wanted the wooden finish at the horizon line to actually transform the space. So this is one of the only times that I've actually kept the lights on while daylight is there, because we found the entire mood of the space was transformed by this one detail. Because again, it's about the angle at which you're viewing. So this same technique we're using for this terrace for a university in central London, where again, we have an enormous square. It has an emergency route going through it, but we're using the facades themselves to be diffuse reflectors. And again, we've only put warm light in, there's enough daylight there, so we're going into warmth and extra warmth. And we were testing whether we use 3000K, 2700, or 2400. It all depended on the material. But what you get is a build-up of light, so we're not using light level at all. What we're using is the contrast balance of your eye as you move your eye around the space. So the space feels illuminated. And yes, you can see, but we've also tuned the particular wavelength to the material. The warmer brick gets a warmer light, the cooler stone gets a cooler light. And here, I would say, I'm very proud of, this is the most beautiful fire escape in London. Because again, in an emergency condition, you're only looking at your feet. You just need to see where there is a change of level. You don't need to blast light everywhere. The same technique you can use on a very small project. You can work for mass projects, it can work for very small. So when designing a yacht, in lighting, you're in violent contrast imaginable. Someone is sunbathing outside of the yacht in 50,000 lux, and they come running into the interior. Their eyes don't have time to adjust. You get what we call tunnel effect. Your eye reacts to bright light quickly, but very, very slowly to low levels of light. So here, there's actually artificial light below those steps, and we're using the steps as a diffuse reflector, but again, cool light's allowed to diffuse in at the top, warm light below. But where all the light is directly opposite where you need. You need to allow your eyes to adjust comfortably so that you can step in, and it, I'd say, produces quite a light at night as well. But the low carbon approach and this idea of warm light contrasting daylight, but actually inviting daylight in, using it, understanding in the programs where the daylight is, and then where daylight isn't, that tells us where to put the accent. So it gives you very dynamic spaces, and again, no one can see colour in this space, it just looks like normal light. But you can see there the layers of blue and gold, but the blue is provided by the daylight. So what you can see in this is lots of naked concrete. And this is what architects love, especially like working with me and my team, is that we're actually looking for a 60% reduction in ceilings. We want to expose as much concrete as you can. At night, yes, you've got the daylight there, but here, every window you have that gives you daylight turns into a black mirror at night. So use that. You've got a black mirror. You don't need to light things near it. It's reflecting. So all of the staircases are just low-level accent handrails. Nothing in the ceiling, wherever possible. And it gives you a layout much like this, which again, our minimalist architects just adore. Now we can take that effect and light whole buildings like that. We had the aspiration from FCB. They wanted naked concrete everywhere. And again, for sustainability, this works very well because you're activating the heat sink because you've not covered your concrete with any plaster. So the concrete is actually helping cool the building. You're using its thermal mass. But there was a wonderful property that we discovered, that it wasn't just in the cool white and the warmth, but it was the angle of reflection and the property of the concrete. At the sharp distance views, it became reflective like water, but if you look straight up, you got this sort of warm leather feel. But the other interesting thing that we found was that our lighting diagram, we had busy animated spaces, people discussing, arguing with each other in a library, but you had greater levels of concentration. Our model for our light levels between uniformity or patches of light and dark end up nearly looking identical to our acoustic model. There's something that we found that there's a good relationship between light, dark, quiet, loud. So again, the same technique can use in the laboratory. We have cool, bright, high concentration light for the places where people work. At AstraZeneca have moved all their scientists from around the whole and brought to one building. It's the size of 3 jumbo jets, but those laboratories are there in the middle. Around the edges are these areas of wood. We're warming up daylight, but we're simulating daylight in the areas of the building. Again, this is affecting a but we also influence the sort of zigzag nature, the private corners. The building is surrounded by all these private corners, but also the louvering of the roof there is, again, the solar reflector. It allows sunlight in the winter, but not in the summer. And interestingly, from our advice, they were able to turn the building 21 degrees, to be precise, which works for your English hours and at our latitude. But again, separate from those daylight areas, you can see here that we have these sort of warm gallery spaces for the circulation. We're allowing your eyes to rest. Constant, you see like this high-level fovea work, cool blue, but warmth, relaxation, concentration. We're reminding people of the fireplace. But in the last 5 years, we've been able to develop this across the full 24-hour cycle. Working with astronomers, protecting the dark skies, bat and bee populations are collapsing around the world, frog populations are collapsing around the world. And yes, it could be artificial fertilizer, but the most dangerous thing we've done since the 1970s is put blue light into our nighttime environment. So it's breeding patterns. But we were looking at how popular blue light was 25 years ago, but we've noticed that the gradual people prefer using red. And so one thing that we've found, and again, as I showed you earlier, different colours have effects on the eye. So all of this thing about the blue light is phobia, but to the edge of your light, of your eyes that are sensitive to the blue, they have no sensitivity to red. So we're actually increasing the redness or the orangeness. Now again, you've got societal problems. You've got the idea of what does red light mean? In the West, it means something, let's say. But in the East, it's seen as something very fortunate. It's money, it's health. So you get very wide cultural differences. But London itself has very much turned red on an unconscious basis over the last 15 years. Because now that we take conservation very seriously, I've actually had a number of facades, like I've lit up banks. They said, switched it all off, we need to be profligate with money now. So London itself has got darker for the last 15 years, but the lights that do shine out everywhere are the lights on the cranes. Now they're red because a pilot, but your eye at your is not attracted to it. So pilot's eyes don't do this. But that's why policemen's lights are blue, the flickering blue, because it attracts your eyes. So police, ambulance. But red light, you can see it, you're not distracted by it. So again, looking through my portfolio, I found, actual fact, I've been doing this for years. This is a coking plant in Germany where we floodlit the whole space red. This is a 1 mile long, disused factory where they process coal into coke. And we used actually very innovative reflecting pool that runs through the middle of this disused factory, where we just got them to paint it with a bitumen or with a small strip, just that big. Left a hose pipe in it. 3 days later, and it's everyone's favourite ice rink. One thing we do, if everything is red, all of that red disappears within minutes. So we had to put one blue line, one blue street, because your eye is constantly changing, it's constantly seeking new information. So if you've got red over here and blue over here, your eye resets all the time. You're able to see the colours that you see. But this relationship with red, I discovered a lot more when I was invited here, Chile, to the Atacama Desert. This was a conference of astronomers versus the evil lighting designers and how we are destroying the planet. But there was an effect that I saw here, which was, for the first time, I was in an environment that was just pure starlight. Now, anyone here, have you seen the Milky Way? Have you been in that level of darkness where you can see 9,000 stars in the night sky? Now, this is something that is spectacular, and I've looked for many years for an image that describes what I saw that night I woke up at 2 in the morning going, who on earth is having a party out there? And what I saw when I looked out was a kin. You can see everything. You can see the details of the trees, the mountains, everything in the distance on the horizon. But if anyone walks up to you, they are just an inky black shadow because you have xerophobia. But an interesting thing happens when you actually recreate this scene. In the wavelength, you see me and my associate here. We as people, we light up. Our skin, again, material, our skin resonates. The blood in our body starts to glow when you actually have the level of light at the red end of the spectrum. So we're using this in normal, everyday projects. Just outside Heathrow is this new housing development with a park that's 1 mile long, but one end of it is a busy city junction, but at the other end is a nature reserve with protected animals and bats all the way down this park. So we've had to develop what is the way of balancing. We need to protect the bats, but also the front door in a safe way. So the scheme, the lights actually, as you get more towards the nature, right through to like a deep orange at night. And so along the park, again, there is a big difference between a space being lit in a winter's afternoon where it's already, the sun has set. Busy people, people are still using the space. But at 4 in the morning, 5 in the morning, why is there any light on if nobody? Amount of light, but for people to get home. But again, it's as much about the position as it is about the light level. So use this for evening events now. So Box Park, there's a series of these appearing in cities from one end of the country to another. The whole building is recycled containers arranged in a horseshoe shape to become a venue. And we don't put any white light in this space. There's enough white light, again, for evening use. There's enough white light that comes from all the cameras, everyone serving food, selling things. There's white light from the windows. So with this low light discovery, we just put this even carpet of red in the space. You can animate it, sometimes purple or a blue, but we stayed to these nighttime colours. So in this entire black environment, people walk around glowing. The light is coming from the people. Again, 20 years ago, this is a science centre, 2003. Again, it's derelict steelworks. It's incredibly expensive to take these large industrial things down. So what do you do with them? Well, you sort of re-simulate the fact that they're alive. You bring the heat back. But at these very levels, again, you're allowing your eye to adjust. Before anyone enters the museum, you bring them into an actual, absolutely black space, just with a touch of red. I have to say, when I took this image, none of those people knew I was in the room because I'd been there for an hour, so my eyes had adjusted. But those people, I was walking around, none of them could see me at all. And I only realised this when I took the image. My camera went click, and they all started shrieking. So I wasn't intending to terrify them, but so you can see here, and this is again 20 years ago, so we had done this unconsciously, just through observation. The new walkways that go through that steelwork, The red light is just at your ankle level, but you can see everything, you can see around, but your eye, because your iris stays that wide, so you can see everything in the black. So you don't need to the people. So you feel safe and confident as long as you can see, again, your horizon. So below red is then utter darkness. And that is a whole other field, again, in itself. So myself and Chris Lowe, my associate in Manchester, we've each contributed these papers over the last 10 years about the depth and meaning. Now we're talking about what do people see, what do people fear, what is this element of darkness that's always negative. So Chris has developed sculptures for people to experience the darkness, and damn him, he got published in for a psychology publisher. He got his work published before I have, but I'm still working on getting my book out at some point. But these are the installations that he does. It can take there for you to read. It takes 20 minutes for your eyes to adjust to see that sign. But again, we can use this in the landscape. We can see how people are comfortable at much lower layers of light than people would otherwise. So again, University of Roehampton, in these trees themselves are protected. We intentionally only lit the edges of the space. The rest of the middle does not need light. Or if we have a public domain, this is on the edge of Cambridge, it's a new development for the university. We have astronomers right next door. So yes, we can provide light for the public, but actually if we texture it, we give it patterns, what we need to put there is there, but we've managed to lower it via pattern or texture. And we confidently give advice now. This is a thing that's happened in London post-COVID. We're seeing a lot of our interior designers loving it as a finish. And I think it's got something to do with now, after COVID, we need to tempt people back into the office place, but there's an increased need of intimacy, of warmth. People aren't used to being out in the public. Again, the thing that you have, if you enter a space, and a space that's all black, it's more absorbed. I can't do anything with that. But if you give me one finish that can reflect, punch all the light onto that one finish, and then the black will become lustrous, because the last thing you do with a black finish is put light on it. You just see things. You actually put a glowing ball. See, there's two glowing lamps. Your iris is reduced. Light. A black finish. I said you can have your black reception, but I must have when you get into the lift lobby, because it can take we timed people walking into this lift lobby, and say, just like the experience on a yacht, so you need to be able to adjust, because you're having to adjust to stepping out from daylight. So as long as you've got a bright light in the dead centre of your building, people can get to it. This is the room that I did a lot of these studies in 20 years ago. I was lucky that we were using colour a lot at that time. So I had these programmable colour change projectors. And I discussed on with our eyes and colour and vision. Because this image, again, blue and gold, you see there's one gold spotlight and the rest of the room is also light. But it's pink when you're in there. So again, I realised that your eye is something else going on that the camera doesn't see. So that's made me look more and more at the fovea, and the nature of colour. Now here's a test. It starts getting stranger and stranger now. So, just absorb, blink a few times. Does anyone notice anything in this image? Question, is it one colour or two? No. It's sort of yellow or it's green or it's yellow. Different dots move, yes? But you see the way the colour between yellow and green? Now this works in English because we have no word for the colour between yellow and green. And this green is exactly the peak wavelength of the fovea in your thumbnail. So this is the colour that disappears all the time. Now here's the strange thing, and this is what we discovered when blue LEDs came out. Inside your fovea, there is no specific blue. Because your fovea has gone to that specific wavelength, which happens to be the wavelength of our local star, it's quite a nice little fact there, the wavelength of blue being slightly different is slightly wider. We evolved to sunlight, but we let go of blue. So that now means that if you focus on the pure blue wavelength, it's always fuzzy. Now that's the reason why we in the West call Sultan Ahmed Mosque in Istanbul the Blue Mosque, or we talk about Chartres Cathedral, the blue light. They're not blue, there's as much red ink in the ceramics as there is blue, but blue hovers, it becomes spatial. Red stays very specific, and yellow-green becomes agitated. You can see how agitated your eye is becoming. You're actually aware of your fovea moving, but only at that wavelength. Now that goes towards this. Actually, can we have the lights up a bit, just for this, over the audience? Now, it's a show of hands. Does everyone remember this image? So, show of hands. I'll come out. Now this was the most sent image. It was about 2 years ago, or 3 years ago. And it was just a woman in Scotland took a picture of a dress. And suddenly this image it nearly broke the internet. It was in every country, everywhere. Because how can it be white and gold and blue and black at the same time? What on earth is going on? Well, I've got the answer because I've met the dress. And the strange thing for me is I've got it wrong. But even when I've met the dress, I know what this dress is. When I see that image, I go to the wrong shade. So the image actually transforms in front of me once I recognise the image. But you see, I've been talking on about gold and blue, but the colours disappear. The reason why this image does this is because somewhere in your visual cortex, you've seen the image, and somewhere in your brain, you have whether that image is internal, external, or in the morning or the evening. So you see, all of that cycle that I've been talking about, it actually transforms the physical material you think you're looking at. So here's the answer. And that is the dress. And I'm on stage. When I see that image, I know it's wrong. But I know light and gold. Because visual cortex, and we call that constancy. That's why I'm able to show you all those blue and gold images, or go into red, but I know that you won't see those colours because your eye removes them. I don't know if Father Ted has been to India, but this is the guy on the right is very stupid, and he was saying, no, the small cows, not the big cows, the small cows. He's saying, no, all the cows are the same size, but the small ones are further away. We have in our image, we say cow, we have a brain, we know what that is. In colour, I say Coca-Cola, you think of one shade of red. But, of course, when you look at it, your eye is processing 40,000 different shades of red. So that's all the information that's constantly and this is another example of, I experiment on my own office. I put an 18-metre screen into our reception area, and I took many of our team's drawings, and I projected them up enormously. And yet, people working in front of this space, they couldn't see any images after half a day. Yes, okay, yeah, there's moving image there. It's flickering, it's doing something. But people would walk past their own drawings for a month or 2 months before they'd notice. Because again, at no point had their fovea gone to that image. What your visual cortex is always doing, going, oh, I know that, I know what that is, so I don't need to look at it now. Like the beauty of light rippling on the water, light moving through a tree. You don't need to see it. Your visual cortex has gone, tree, light, end. So there's no reason for your fovea to go and have a look. So our visual cortex is doing lots of interesting things. And this is now being published. At the beginning, I said how much I loved Louis Kahn and invited to speak at one of his most famous buildings, the Salk Institute in San Diego. The whole team here, Sancha Panda is the other doctor, along with Thomas Albright. They are analysing each neuron, one neuron at a time, and they're mapping the visual cortex. And they're seeing, okay, when the human eye gets stimulated, what's going on in the mind? How does it assess things? So the visual cortex is always saying, table, chair, it shorthands language, oh, it's made of wood. So as long as that wood stays brownish, it's to look at it in detail. Your slightly different. Now, I had an argument with Thomas Albright because he said he felt like he'd been lost on the Tokyo Underground for many years. I said, no, you need to see the true map of the railways of London, and then you'll discover true complexity. But something else is going on in the cortex, which is even more surprising. When language that you speak changes can and can't see. This is being discovered with tribes, this being the Himba tribe of Namibia. They have a different language structure and a different way of describing colours. Now, it's always been thought that if a language had less ability to describe colour, then you will see less colour. But in actual fact, it's just if it's different. So you have the ability to see different colours if you have words. Here is in that test, the Himba tribe can't see the square that's different on the image on the left. Now, in the West and English audiences, I ask people, so which is the square that's different on the right? We can't see it in English. But it'd be interesting for people with how many languages are in this room. Can anyone see which square? If I said sort of 11 a.m. or 11 is the one square that's so something else is going on in the mind that as soon as you present something on, it's their own experience, it's their own programming. Everyone that experiences your dark space, your light space, your glittering space, whatever, will have a different association. So one of the founding fathers of modern psychology, I'm a big fan. He had an argument with Freud, reasons for the way we think on suppression and sex. But Carl Jung actually looked at, no, there is a depth of spirit, there is a depth of soul that's going on within a person. And one of my favourite parts of this line is that these wavelengths that my eye receives, once they've gone into my brain, my mind is only experiencing itself. It's this catalogue of images. So you, but me with lighting, working with your materials, I can transform that. And it's interesting. Published works. A very interesting thing that you get, and in difference in studies between East and West within the religion, symbolism reveals a lot about different cultures' attitude toward up 50 years of his published work. It generates a diagram which has a lot of influence from ancient Hindu texts as well as Buddhist texts, but also a lot of the visions of the early Christians. There's a lot of similarity in religions from that period. But we don't have enough time to go into that in detail. But this is something that, again, it sits within and it sits below. And this is why I'm so pleased to be invited to India. 20 years ago, we published this work where I included a chapter on how each of the world's religions put light in a different place around the individual, above, calling forward. But this is where the Hindu belief system was something that was so important to me, is that the ancient temples of Khajuraho, forgive my pronunciation, but the form of the temple was increased darkness to the level of sacredness. You have to slow down, you have to experience the sensation of God within. You have to find your own light within. Whereas the Christian ideal is, I am the light, I pull you into my light. And a mosque is very even light. We're all equal in the same light within a mosque. And Buddhism is, everything is light. So you get lots of things covered in gold leaf, and again, a very flat, diffuse light. So there's a lot of internal triggering, especially when you work internationally, that you can use a colour, and especially when you're using lighting, the symbolism creates something very, very different. But understanding that has enabled me to bring things that I've learnt in one religion and actually implement them in another. St Paul's Cathedral, London, is not just, a grand building of London, but it's an important building that shows the Protestant church standing against the Catholics. There's a lot of politics involved in it. But working on it, we found that it never had a single lighting system. When it was first done by Christopher Wren, there were just a few. We actually found 6 remaining original chandeliers that Christopher Wren had done. But of course, they were just candles, low level, in a small corridor. So the work that we did was to bring more light to the floor, because all the light was around the altar. Again, the Christian symbolism, all the redecoration, over its 300-year history, they had always updated and increased the level of gold and richness around the altar. But you, the public, the peasants, further to the west, got less and less attention. So our work with the first single lighting system and a single control system, we had to implement this procession. And the clergy grabbed hold of this with both hands, and they love having ceremonies now where the choir carry the candles and the light follows them through the spaces. So they actually plunge the cathedral into complete darkness on a regular basis. So with mind and imagery, we're able to take this. This is an art installation. We're waiting for planning permission for this. But this is really beautiful 1950s concrete overpass as you come in from Heathrow, but working with a wonderful collective of artists called Loop PH. This is using traditional lace-making techniques to actually run light through the fibres. So we were talking about how do we address this bridge, how do we take these wonderful mathematics and actually show them to the public. So we looked at how the bridge, could it be sensitive to the night sky? We're in the inner city environment. So you see there's an astronomical red light to the floor, and we actually projected, or we were looking, could we project an accurate star map underneath this bridge? Remind people of the night sky that they lost 100 years ago. But the final scheme that we felt worked really well, we used all the parametric modelling that you hear, the Zaha Hadids of this day. We used all this complex computation, but we wanted to understand what the mathematics of this beautiful curve of the bridge was. So we ran the old bridge from the 1950s through the parametric programs, and then in order to describe that through levels of integers, we then proposed that we would describe the original mathematics of those handwritten blueprints and the beautiful engineers' work of where they'd scribbled on the drawings. So we would project them on. And again, because blue light is a part of white light, we wash the whole thing with blue of the original paper and project the text through the blue. Or your idea or the aim of your building is just to be luxurious, the most expensive residence in the world, as it was at the time. I think the penthouse apartment was sold for 55 million, or it's gone up to 85 million. It overlooks Hyde Park, probably one of the first new buildings that was. But again, very minimal lights at the top. But one thing you see is all the light here, even for this luxury environment, is all to the vertical. Very little light actually on the floor. One innovation, again, when you've got clients with money like this, you can do unusual things. They wanted their swimming pool 3 floors below the grounds, below the car park. And I warned them that this space, if they didn't make it intentionally nighttime, they were going to have a problem with people using it feeling comfortable. So they moved the gym, and we had the windows of the gym being a bright morning, crisp exercising space, but we actually made then this pool feel like outside at night by having everything black reflective and almost like the light spilling out from the gym onto the pool. And this was working with the artist James Turrell. We brought that up to the ground as well, and actually had almost like a Moses parting of the waves, this reflecting pool that you walked over. And the actual coloured light, the blue light of the sky, the translution, was brought down to the ground. So also, in understanding, it's in exhibitions that this also becomes very important about what is the mind, what are people seeing? Do they understand what they're seeing? And again, you're talking about tunnel effect, but the Museum of Islamic Art is the collection of the entire Islamic history across all countries across the world. So there's a very long timeline, but also many of the artifacts here are 700-800 years old. I think one of the ceramic bowls is from within the lifetime of Muhammad himself. So the whole building is acting as a series of stops to enable your eye to be comfortable. So you step into this realm of very dark spaces. These very sensitive artifacts can have a maximum of 50 lux on them, or they have to be exposed to a maximum amount of light per year. So we find 50 lux is just enough to see, but you just have to balance and actually understand the journey that people come to get here. But also the important thing is don't light the whole thing. Reveal the texture, reveal the shadows. And so we were able to help the exhibition designers to talk about, okay, you've got 50 lux maximum object here, but this one can be brighter, but you need to limit the brightness. And the thing I was very pleased of was being able to use the reflection from some artifacts to actually provide the light on the next. Francesco of my team spent about 6 hours making sure those shadows of the mask were perfectly symmetrical. But the other thing is, when you're lighting an artifact, if you don't light the face, the artifact doesn't make any sense anymore. So there's a distinct orientation that you need to make for any artifact. You can read it. So with the last bits of spare light that we knew we had a cavern, a cave, but to make the space feel natural, you'll see all the shadows, the pools of light, they all line up. i.e., it had the idea that you were in this cave, but that the light was leaking in from one angle. So it made the space still feel natural. This is Tamerlane's carpet. I can guarantee you not 1 inch of this carpet is above 49 lux. But you can see daylight is still visible. You don't have to black box spaces in order to get to this 50 lux maximum. We've also used that, and you'd be surprised, contemporary fashion. Again, these are artifact dresses. They have to be 50 lux at the top and the bottom. So you have to have very ambient light there. But 50 lux isn't a great deal. You can see actually that gallery is upstairs. But we actually positioned the shop to be your solar absorber and to enable your light to step down. So working with Zaha Hadid's, this same advice was to her team, that we had this daylight change, along with a lot of modern architects, especially working in computing, they don't care about light. They just think light is flat white light that you get on your model screen. So one thing I was doing was actually telling them about daylight, candlelight, but also the importance. You step in from daylight, you need to make sure that there's a wash of light down the wall. So the only thing I was asking for was, please can I have light on the ceiling and on the back wall? And I left it to them what the shape and the form was, but as long as I had my artificial sky above my head and it led you to a sacred space that was darker or with more contrast, you can see you get this very, again, all of my advice about daytime contrast. Here's the model of the first exhibition space with artificial daylight. And again, you see very flat, very even, but they're able to accept actual spotlighting, because I said it still has to function as a showroom, and we can show the bathroom fittings as almost like sacred exhibits, as if they were in the magazine. And so you see here the tone, but here, this is where you can see the gold and the blue, the contrast, internal glow to the nighttime moonlight. But this same technique works for a project that's 200 years old, where we re-implemented the fittings that had been lost since gaslight, electrical light had been installed in the theatre. We found old sketches of the original architect from 1810, and we brought those lights back using high-tech theatrical lighting, LEDs, programmed them. But again, you're going into a nighttime space, a dulled theatre auditorium. The most important light is, you see, the light from the signage from the arms is down there on the floor. So as long as your feet are safe, you don't need light spreading around the space. So we're able to put flicker, and actually we went back to the handcrafted techniques of crystal glass from Georgian period, from 1810. And we were able to reinstate some of the fittings from sketches that we found in the archive. So I've just got 2 last projects to show you. So this is the Milan Expo, which was an exhibition on the plight of the bees, the importance of the relationship with meadows. And you see here, this is something that shows how to light a park. If you know where your feet are, your eye adjusts to everything else. So yes, you have this exhibit space, but you can light a public realm. We just lifted the whole landscape up. I said, if I can have ankle height light, the rest of the space will work. So including the emergency lighting, again, into a staircase, embedded in the floor. So nothing competes with the amazing hive that is the artwork, the installation itself. That's linked up to a live beehive where it translates the movement of the bees. So you're actually in a real life living experience here. And my last project I'll show you, which is hot off the press, is a modern extension to a Victorian artist's house. Lord Leighton was probably the first artist to be made House of Lords, to make it into the House of Lords in Britain. But the modern extension was to give facilities. So even though it's a small house and a small extension, the complexity and the range of spaces we had to implement here for light-sensitive artifacts was as complex as the museum in Qatar, but just a tiny amount. So people step into daylight, they're comfortable, but they have to get to an exhibition space, and so we had to position the galleries in as comfortable enough way. So this beautiful roomy poem that is the entire length of the staircase from the top floor down to the basement, we used the lighting of that to bring you down to the staircase, and then actually recommended an artwork to be the solar reflector, so your eyes adjust. So as you enter that gallery there, those drawings are at 50 lux maximum, but you've had no idea that I've spent 3 minutes gradually tuning your eyes to this gallery. And it gives a wonderful effect to end on. Thank you very much. Looking for is that something, the design is of itself, that it doesn't have their intention put into it. So they're always looking for the end effect to be something that's unique, not always organic, or it can be like an organic geometry, but it's of itself, like a Zaha Hadid design, you see it's Zaha Hadid. It doesn't remind you of something else. It might have an element of water-hewn rocks, but the end product is something that's uniquely Zaha.
Do we have any more questions? Yeah. So
Hi, sir. In the last project where you mentioned that there was a stairwell taking us gradually down in the lighting levels, can I ask for you to explain us how exactly did you light the stairwell so that it gradually decreased the lighting levels?
Yes, it's been taken off, it's still here on my screen. The artwork, the vertical light, because it's a curve, light loves going into a concave finish, because light is always dropping off at an inverse square ratio. So as a curve finish gets further away from the light, it turns to meet the light as it's dropping off. So you get a beautiful wash. So that's how the wall is lit, but the staircase itself is lit from the handrail. So again, if it's something to do with safety, then I'll always use as local a light as possible, preferably from the knee or the ankle. But integrated handrails work wonders.
We'll take one last question over here. Middle row.
There was a hand at the back as well.
Hello.
Hello.
As you gave the presentation on lights.
Hello.
Oh, sorry, microphone. Is your microphone on?
Yeah, hi. Hi, Colin.
Oh,
Lovely presentation.
Oh, thank you.
Some really interesting lighting. I just have a general everyday question. So while doing bedrooms, for example, how do you do the lighting design? Because there is a constant question of, do you give lights on the ceiling? Because while you're sleeping, you don't want to see that plethora of lights over your head.
Absolutely.
So how do you sort of deal with that, and where should it be, at the floor level or the walls, or how do you make the environment soothing and calm?
Oh, yes, that's exactly that. We look for the evening setting to be as local and as low level as possible for the evening setting. And then at night time, which is the idea of the red light, or let's call it the deep orange light, is literally ankle height. That's just there for sleep disturbance, for you to get to the bathroom without putting all the bright lights on. But absolutely, just as you say, avoiding anything in the ceiling. Like what we've learned from the zero carbon is also for a hotel design or for a house design, is that we put lots of light where you have sharp knives, objects, or making decisions. So yeah, the kitchen or the wardrobe, there will be lots of light there. The bathroom mirror, the most important, again, warm tone, your skin. But other than that, so those core areas where the plumbing is and the rest of the space can just extend to the building perimeter, but you don't need to have a ceiling, you can let more daylight in. So that's where, similar to the offices, we might only put a ceiling into a residence for 1/3 of the building. Almost like a tight core for the lighting there, and then the rest of the lighting is indirectly just splayed out. But for a bedroom or a living room, just a couple of sockets by the end, and again, just the low-level light, because again, in the daytime, there's enough light from the windows. Thank you.
Hello, sir. So I want, sir, in your second project, you use sustainability on a main level, like on the maximum level. Then I just want to ask you why you didn't take the concept of total internal reflection at the night, in the evening, in the lighting. Am I clear? Yeah, the concept of total internal reflection, which we use for lighting at night. So why you didn't pick that concept, like why you didn't use that concept in your...
For internal reflection of the daylight?
Okay.
You mean, so if I understand your question correctly, during the day, we're essentially looking at thousands of lux outside that you're trying to contrast against and balance. But at night time, you don't have this enormous disparity between 20,000 lux outside and 0. At night, you've just got a horizontal plane. So you only have to create pools of light where you need them. You're not competing with daylight anymore. So that's why the nighttime effect is totally different to the daytime.
So I'm asking, like, based on moon waxing and waning cycles, we can use that lighting, at least we can use at some places that lighting by total internal reflection, this concept, by we can use
yes. Sorry, I see what you mean now. Yes, just as I said, at night time, every window has now become a black reflector, a black mirror. We can orientate the light to make spaces feel more lit than they actually are, just by using, often at 90 degrees, or you take a plane local to that black mirror to make a space look twice as bright or twice as lit than it actually is. So that's part of the idea that, again, you have to be careful with black finishes and reflective finishes, that you do maintain one matte finish or one pale finish that actually records light, and then you can reflect it around. So, thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, sir. I would now invite IID JRC Chairman and IIDC Convener, Architect Sheetal Agarwal, to present a token of our appreciation to Mr. Colin Ball. Thank you, sir. It was indeed a pleasure to have had this interaction. We will now request everyone to proceed for tea. For students, the tea will be served on the lower ground floor in the food court. And for our esteemed guests, the tea will be served in the lobby outside the auditorium. I request everyone to please reconvene in 10 minutes as we're running short on time for the next panel discussion.
RC Joint Secretary to felicitate them. Please come up on the stage. Architect Dhruv Gupta, founder of Dhruv.Design, is a graduate of School of Planning and Architecture and has won many prestigious awards during his practice of 22 years. He leads a multidisciplinary practice in Jaipur that has a reputation for out-of-the-box approach to design. He is the youngest architect to bag the Inside Outside Designer of the Year award in 2003 when he launched his career with interior design projects. Since then, he has more than 24 awards and recognitions to his credit at national and international levels. He also holds the Limca record for the design of the longest aquarium in India. The firm has been exploring unconventional ways to integrate greenery in built form and spaces. Samir Wheaton, an exceptional designer whose passion for good design has propelled him to remarkable achievements in the field of industrial and furniture design. With a specialization in these areas, Samir graduated from NID, Ahmedabad, a renowned institution known for nurturing creative minds. As the co-founder of Wheaton Design Private Limited, a prominent practice operating in Delhi and Jaipur, Samir collaborates closely with his partner, Bhavna Wheaton, to bring their design visions to life. Their expertise extends across diverse architectural projects, ranging from exquisite resorts and high-rise residential buildings to hotels and luxurious homes. Their distinctive approach to designs ensure that each project exudes elegance and functionality. Samir's creativity knows no bounds, and he extends his design prowess beyond architecture. He also manufactures top-quality furniture and accessories, catering to both the Indian and international markets. The multifaceted approach showcases his keen eye for detail and his commitment to delivering excellence across various design disciplines. And last, but definitely not the least, Mrs. Vertika Dwivedi is an award-winning entrepreneur and community builder for women in design and architecture. Her remarkable journey began as a first-generation entrepreneur in Delhi, where she overcame personal and career struggles to establish a successful boutique design firm. Currently, Vartika leads multiple impactful initiatives. She is the founder of Wade Asia Women in Architecture and Design, director of Maticia Exhibition, publisher of Surface Reporter magazine, and chairperson of the Wade Foundation. Her work has been recognized by prestigious organizations such as ASSOCHAM and the Delhi Management Association, and she was awarded the Asia Book of Record Medal for her efforts in empowering women. As a sought-after speaker, Vartika shares her expertise of entrepreneurship, startups, architecture and design, and women in leadership roles. She delivers solo speeches at renowned institutions and events nationwide. Vartika's accomplishments have garnered extensive media coverage, including Aaj Tak, Zee News, Economic Times, and Dainik Jagran. She has also pursued senior management studies at IIM Calcutta. In summary, Vartika Dwivedi's journey exemplifies resilience and determination. She has made significant contribution as an entrepreneur, advocate, and speaker, empowering women and leaving a lasting impression on the design and architecture community. Now that we're familiarized with our panelists, I pass the mic over to Megha ma'am to begin this evening's panel discussion.
Hello. Hello, good evening everyone. So nice to see you all here. I'm Megha Bhatnagar and I'm the moderator for today's panel discussion. The discussion is on innovative adaptations, exploring how global trends are being incorporated in Indian design, in Indian architecture and interior design. So when I told this to a friend this morning, the first thing he had to say is, you have never done anything in moderation. So how are you supposed to moderate? So well, here I am. Let's see how this goes. So my very accomplished panel is here. I don't know why they made me sit like this and them like that. Well, so Vartika Dwivedi, Dhruv Gupta and Sameer Wheaton, so nice to be sharing this stage with you. And about Sameer, I have a little trivia to share, that he's also a very outstanding swimmer. He has swam from Catalina Island to LA, 20 miles in 13 hours. So that's his exceptional achievement. हाँ, देश की आप बात बताओ. The Bhagirathi, yes. That was 80 kilometers, guys. So many more other swims, yes. So this is going to be a 50-minute session followed by 5 or 10 minutes of Q&A. And the format is going to be conversational. And I would like to ask the first question to Dhruv. And Dhruv, would you like to start by stating specific examples of what you think global trends have been incorporated in Jaipur design and architecture? If you think there are any such examples that we can begin by, I'd like to ask you that, yeah.
So can I pass the question?
Well, you can.
So I think one of the most obvious things is the Jaipur airport. Right? It's the first impression that anybody gets when traveling, coming in about the country, about the people, about everything. So that, obviously was the international design trend. Plus, there are very simple things that we go about every day, like the Central Park, how it came up, right? That's equivalent to, I think, many of the parks which are around, the new installations which are coming up, part of which we have been associated with, like the organ donation thing, which is next to the hospital, and even in the Central Park, You know, those large 13 monuments which are there, stone.
Yeah, the stone monoliths.
Yeah, monoliths which are there. So I think that's, more than obvious in terms of public spaces. Yeah.
Vartika, would you like to add any example to that, which you think is influenced by global trends?
Hello. See, I'm from Delhi. Both my fellow panelists are from Jaipur. But as someone from the architecture and design media, I can see that Jaipur is one city where we can see a strong amalgamation of both the global trends and the traditional things kept intact. So I think it is a mix of both that we see, and the way forward is what we are going to discuss. So in the questions that will follow, I would also like to touch upon the nuances of the designs that we see here.
Yes, I think you have brought us to the question that always lingers as architects and designers, that, how do we kind of marry both traditional design and traditional design, not in terms of decoration only, the real sense of design in terms of traditional planning and traditional motives with the global trends or the modern trends as we call them. So especially in Jaipur, I think it's such a delicate balance because we have so much wealth here. We are sitting on so much wealth that for us it's quite a question. So, I would like to ask one of you, maybe Dhruv, you would like to touch upon?
I can't pass twice.
Yes, please.
So, to generally brief, give you a quick response to your previous question. So, whenever I hear the term trend, it sort of triggers my design ego. That, I am not the person who, follows trends and but when this thing came up, I started looking back at what I have done, and I discovered that there are certain things which very subconsciously can be considered global and which form part of my design vocabulary. So definitely there is, I would, as a designer, not do anything just because it's a global trend. But if there is any, and we are it's an enriching profession that we have, that we are constantly inspired by other designers and other cultures, and there are times when there is some inspiration to be had, whether it is locally or globally. So in my opinion, design revolves around need and aspiration. So if there is something, so one thing which I can quickly say is, say, large windows. I am very fascinated by large windows. So it solves, it's not because it's global or it's a trend, it's something to my mind, it solves. It creates an opportunity, it solves some problems as well, creates its own problems in terms of heat and maintenance and things like that. So definitely there is, it's a fine line, as you said, that there is there is influence which is always coming, and I'm sure we are influencing. Now you have, rammed earth architecture being followed in Western countries, which are like traditionally the Eastern influence on the West. So it's, I would say the bottom line for me would be to, really see how does that global trend or global idea fits into the need and aspiration of, so one example that I could take from my own project would be Fort, which is of course everybody's been to Fort and it's very close to heart. So that is basically it's a modern building. So a lot of, people see and they feel as if it's a castle or something like that. It's not. If you really see the plan and if you really see the volume, that is absolutely a modern building. We just have some arches, otherwise everything is a cuboid. So it is something, but it does not look like a modern building because of the skin and because of the way we have done the masonry and everything. So that, in my opinion, in my pool of projects that I have done, I would say that is something where I am personally very happy that it's not a traditional building and it's not a modern building. And I think it does toe that line, very, very fine line.
Yes, I think you brought up that project, Fort. It's a very interesting mix of both, and how you brought it up so beautifully. And it's a wonderful place. We've all had dinners and lunches there. And Samir, would you like to illustrate any such example of where you felt that there would a balancing act is required, but how to balance was a challenge. So passing has ended.
Megha, here I would like to bring into a discussion about materials and the adaptations factors and the innovation factor. Because see, I have been running Surfaces Reporter since the last 12 years, and it has been a magazine which has been talking more about ideas and how ideas and materials come together to give life to any project. So it's a very interesting topic, but then it needs a very detailed discussion. So I thought that I will touch upon one topic and try to do justice on that. So what we see today in India is about, little innovations here and there, and especially we are seeing in terms of material, some innovations from some brands like, you will find some leveling up is happening in terms of whatever existing products and materials we are having according to the new needs of architecture and design. Be it, anything glass, tiles, concrete, coatings, facade, cladding, whatever. But whatever is happening in India is really not up to the level that it should have. And maybe because of that reason, we are talking about this topic about looking into the global trends and how we can adapt to that. But my personal feeling is that India is so much capable, and India today should have a lot of research which actually happens outside, the way that research, the way that institutes, practitioners, the way research agencies come together and work on materials and products to bring in innovation, which is not happening in India and can happen in India. Now, I would like to give some kind of examples here. If we all know about Arab, right? And we know how they are creating some innovations with the research agencies and practitioners. If you know about the Museum of Modern Art, and there was one structure built with biomaterials, a 13-meter structure built with biomaterials which had the possibility to stand on its own. It was, I think, made with some mycelium, a biomaterial, okay? And the beauty of that, material and product is that once that structure's work is done as as a display, the material can be composed and returned to the soil, returned to the local people. So these kind of things, and are the companies and the practitioners doing it on their own? No, they are getting funded for that. In India, that kind of a pipeline, that kind of a channel has not yet been created. Like, I think that was funded by EU Bio Board or something like that, but it was funded. Okay, so what I mean to say is, see, adopting global things are important. Whatever innovations happen, it's important. But why not we think about innovating and researching and creating innovations here? We all, as a community, we are capable about it. We are capable of it. So what I see is that the few things, innovations that are happening here and there will not lead us anywhere. And plus, like when we want to adopt something from somewhere, we have to see the local conditions. We have to see our local, possibilities. And again, a research will be required here to adopt anything. See, designs and trends are coming and going. But architecture and buildings are meant to be timeless, isn't it? They're meant to be timeless. But look at the kind of the unfortunate thing that we often do not want to think as architects and designers. What happens to buildings ultimately? Unfortunate thing is that they are all meeting the inevitable, demolition. What happens to the waste materials? I think like when we talk about anything that we can adopt, we should think about our local conditions. We should think about what change we can bring in, because I'm sitting with so many, illustrious architects, designers who are designing so many buildings of India. I thought of bringing this important, matter here. As a media, we can play a very, very important role. We can be the connecting point, talking to the government, talking to various associations, talking to even the private companies. If Neeta Ambani today can create a cultural center, Kiran Nadar is creating largest, she's creating I think 100 square meter, 100 something, 1 lakh, Madhu, if I'm not wrong, yeah, 1 lakh square meter of cultural center. See, people are investing in things which they believe in. People are investing in things which they believe in. So what I mean to say, when media comes in, when the practitioners come in the picture, and when funds and connections can be created, we should use such kind of a platform as this, as you have created, for talking about things which we can do something larger and greater for the future. I can see a lot of students sitting here, but these students should be going with some great takeaways from here. So when there is an exhibition out there, but how many of you have gone and asked about what kind of innovations they are doing? What is the, what is the product they are showcasing? I'm asking you all students, if you are listening to me, I'm talking to you. All the students out here, especially. There is an exhibition out here, and IIDC has, they have done a lot of hard work to bring a lot of people together. I was so much intrigued by the presentation given by Colin. I really appreciate the way that he has shown how light affects health, how light affects living, how light can be the factor that can create and change our lifestyle. Likewise, if you have come somewhere, try to learn from each one that you are meeting, especially the young ones. This is my message, and my message to this fraternity is about doing some change together, bringing some change together, and one change that I really see, which is very much required in India, and which will be eventually done, and why not we can expedite this process by creating some kind of a pipeline, by creating some kind of a group which promotes and which takes this kind of research for materials and innovation together. Funds can come in when people join hands. So what I think is, rather than thinking about and talking about what we can take from the global, which is important, I believe, but we should think about what we can create and give to the globe, give to the world. Thank you so much.
Lovely. Yeah, Sabir has something to say.
It worked, right?
It worked, yes. Please carry on.
So I think, like global design trend, you're talking about it, is being regional. So, I've traveled fairly, for whatever my swims or my work, I travel pretty, often all over the place, and I'm sure like all of you must have. And throughout the world, everybody is, the new architecture is, and also, people are trying to adapt, what is regional, and also adaptive reuse. Yeah. So, reuse of, let's say, the buildings which are taken apart, got together, or buildings which are existing, and you want to, create a new thing, like let's say the Louvre. Yeah, it's a great example internationally of something which was existing, way earlier in, modern technology. Like similarly like this, we were associated with a project which is the Gyan Museum, and talking about what is, again, the new trends in Jaipur, which is a lot of museums are coming up, and a lot of these museums are absolutely world-class and contemporary. So I don't know how many people have gone to the Gyan Museum, but we have used, tried to amalgamate all the local materials and technology, and the person who had that, ancestral local artifacts which they got, and put it together in a contemporary format. So, this is existing, and it is happening. So even in design, what you're talking about, experimentation and stuff like that. So I think from the very beginning, we guys, have been doing experimental work throughout in terms of our maybe products, architecture, interiors. I don't know, I can just count maybe a couple of projects where we have not done any experimental work, but it has always been experimental.
interesting. And how you pointed out about research, right? You were focusing on that. But we are also discussing how we can be instrumental, even as a single person. We can be instrumental in probably following global trends, of course, taking that into account, but also thinking out of the box on our own while we have all the plethora of crafts and the local materials with us and having a mix, because that is a challenge. So now the next question that I would like to ask is, what is the role of technology in it? Because we are in the age of Pinterest and everything else that follows. So what is your idea about that? Then when clients bring you Pinterest pictures and they are in Russia or Ukraine or wherever, what do you have to say to that? Dhruv, maybe.
I'll take that, yeah. So Mies van Roo said that when technology reaches its fulfillment, it transcends into architecture. So, so definitely where we are the products of like technology in our hands is, we will do what we will do with it. And I think architects, I would say, we are very innovative. We do different things like I made a planter out of PVC pipes in one of the projects. That was not the intended use of that product. So definitely we are all, architecture as a profession definitely is supremely affected by technology. There is no doubt about it. So there are these CNC machines. So now you can see CNC jalis everywhere and you can see CNC in stone everywhere. There will be, Korean came around 20 years ago, 25 years ago. It solved certain problems. So all architects took to it with aplomb. So definitely then CAD, BIM, Apple Vision is the next thing which announced we should get that in the early next year. So definitely we are affected by technology and I'm sure we are affecting technology as well. From the other point of view, which is Pinterest, I would say it's a great communication tool. Sometimes I would tell I am not able to explain with words to somebody in my team, and I would say, okay, ek baar na Pinterest pe ye type karo. Also what happens with us is that people now expect that you will show them a reference on Pinterest. So that is where we feel we fall short, that there is no reference. It is something which sometimes I have in mind, and I have that expectation that okay, I am thinking this, and if I type these words, so Pinterest will give me something which will actually show me what I am thinking, or it's sort of never happened. So it's so I would just say that we are talking about research, we are talking about technology, but I think the bottom of all that is, as we as architects should really dig a little deeper of what we are up to in terms of is our role only using new materials, or is it our role, or is it our professional this thing that we need to look at global trends or trends all around and somehow use them, or what is the problem that we are trying to solve as designers. And as the aspiration, and this is the first time, and I take this example very, very often, our generation is, I would experience that my survival is guaranteed. When my parents were bringing me up, so their thing was that, बच्चे पढ़ लिख जाएं, engineer, doctor बन जाएं, नौकरी लग जाए, कमाने लग जाएं. So their survival was not guaranteed. So our generation probably is the first generation where the survival is guaranteed, and now we can think, अब हम क्या करेंगे? So I think we need to answer the deeper questions. Look at, I don't know, have a list of the deeper questions, but as designers, we can look at if there is a global trend, does it solve any problem which we are how are we using that technology and where are we going with it?
So sometimes as designers, do we also get bogged down by the sheer You know, there's so much visual imagery that is coming our way, and we get bogged down by कि सब जगह ये हो रहा है, तो maybe this is the right thing to do. But then sometimes we just get into the flow without even thinking. And also I think the pressure from the client is there. कि ये सब जगह हो रहा है, तो you must do it. But then the question is global versus traditional. How do you do the correct thing, if there is such a correct thing? And also a little example is like if you suggest Kota stone, they would say कि वो cheap लगता है, तो Italian लगा दो. And lot of times we have to bite the bullet and put Italian stone, much as you would not like to. So, I mean, this is again, because it's trending, that's what we have to do it. So what is the right approach, or what is the idea that we can really push ahead to have global when it's only required to have, or it's suiting the project? But when you think कि traditional materials होने चाहिए, traditional technology होनी चाहिए, तब आप लोग क्या सोचते हो?
I'll take this question.
Yes.
So I think I'm just realizing in your, whatever you were saying, I never thought about it earlier. I don't think we can be right all the time. So I think we can be comfortable with being wrong. And we have to, in the moment, back our instincts. And so I totally empathize with you. I'm an anti-Italian marble guy, but 80% of my projects, you know, मैं हार जाता हूँ, मैं नहीं लगा पाता. You know, कुछ मैं लगाया है मैंने कोटा स्टोन. अभी तक मैंने एक प्रोजेक्ट है जहाँ पर मैंने रेस्टोरेंट में लोग मेरी बात मान जाते हैं, तो वहाँ पर मैंने पॉलिश कंक्रीट फ्लोर लगाया, घर में नहीं लगा पाया अभी तक. So it does happen, but it's I think design, the beautiful thing about design is nothing is right and nothing is wrong. And so I think you need to just back yourself, and like in the circumstances, some you lose some and you win some. I think there is no, I would say no recipe to, you know, do the right thing.
Very well said. Vartika, you'd like to add something to that?
See, I work with architects all the time, and I see them walk down with a lot of things, because see, definitely there is visual, weight on people, because a lot of, it is not one or two references. People, when they want to communicate, they communicate with, and sometimes burdened with a lot of imagery. Imageries are everywhere. Definitely there is. But at the same time, I have seen in the last decade how architects have become much better in communicating. They have become much smarter in understanding and also communicating what is to be done, while also accepting things from the clients. In my own project, we as Surfaces Reporter, we are creating our large corporate office in Noida, large, this thing. I'm also working with an architect there. But then, because I know both the sides, so I think I'm more considerate, but not all clients are. So I think like it's a kind of a thing which Dhruv has very beautifully said. One thing I would like to pick from what he has said. See, it is about what is needed is to be done. And every time, no one can be right. But yes, you can always share what you think is right. And that's very important, I believe.
Wonderful. For example, sometimes, these glass facade buildings are all over. And they look beautiful. We get so enchanted by them. But then when we place them in Rajasthan on the west facade, a disaster is following us. So, ऐसा बहुत दफा होता है. How do we deal with that?
Communicating rightly. And then, even after so much of communication in all sorts of things, if it is not happening, then you cannot take that burden on you yourself. But then communication is very important. जो बोलते हैं ना हिंदी में शाम दाम दंड भेद सारा एक अपना लेना चाहिए, because you cannot let somebody do such wrong thing to a building. You are an architect and designer because you love buildings, you love to design, right? How can you let somebody change, affect their lifestyle, habitants ka life up? How can you make them affect their life in an adverse way? You will not, because you are doing your job and you have to do that right. But at the same time, if they're like this, then at certain point, I think not everybody can be right. Doctors also advise so many things. Not everybody go for all those things, but then yes, they do it, right?
That is also the skill, right? The skill of your manipulation.
Communication.
Is the communication skill that we are all talking about, right? We are involved with visual and spatial communication, yeah? And, how to manipulate what they're saying to what is right, is the trick of the whole thing.
Absolutely, and I think like the students must take note of this, because what you are going to learn from this, see, everybody sitting around you is a kind of, Wikipedias for you. So don't just sit like this. I know whenever I see in any event, students are sitting and not interacting and all that, I feel bad about it. I want people to come to me and ask questions. I like people to go to, students especially to go to people and ask questions, know things about, so many things, because there is an opportunity here for all of you to learn so much, so much more. So, you can look at the mobile phones later on also, but this is the time when you should learn. Yes, sorry.
I'd like to just
Noted.
add,
Yes.
so definitely communication is the most important part of a designer. If you are interacting with client, you may be the world's best designer, but if you can't get your point across, then it's nothing. So one thing which I have learned the hard way or with the long way is that what works is empathy. So there was in my earlier career, I used to be very judgmental of I must confess. So मुझे लगता है ये क्या कह रहा है, ये क्या कह रही है, ये क्यों हो रहा है, so I would check myself, and if I now with some practice try to empathize that, okay, they are saying this, where are they coming from? So that is where I think there was one project where I wanted to put corrugated sheet on the front facade. And I tried all my Sam, Dam, Dand, Bhed. So I said कि नहीं आपको करना पड़ेगा. I said नहीं मैं इसके पैसे मैं दे दूँगा. All of those things I tried and the client did not budge. So then I thought कि क्यों मना कर रहा है. So I got to that route and I said, okay, what is your concern? He said कि ना मेरी building ऐसी लगेगी. I said, okay, I have got, just trust me and I will make sure it does not happen. I will not say कि बाद में क्या हुआ, but वो sheet लग गई वहाँ पे. So I think the key is to empathize and then look at where the concern is, and that is our best. The best that we could do is to, if the client gets that, you are on their side. If they get that, so then things are fairly easy. It's not manipulation, and I've done. मैं अभी भी करता हूँ. I would not say that I'm a saint and I don't do it. I do it, but I think the really buttery way of doing it is to empathize with them, really empathize with them, and then go from there.
Wonderful. Probably you also mean that educating the client is the process.
Correct, yeah.
Sometimes you need to educate them. They don't know the entire, because when you imagine a project, you can see it in totality, but the client cannot.
I have discovered that there is always a concern. And we as architects, my ego really gets bruised. I told somebody that we'll put a 1 meter by 1 meter vitrified tile in it was a lower cost house. And the lady said, vitrified tile to main nahi lagaungi. So मुझे इतना ठेस लगा मुझे कि how can she say no to me, And I could not, and I did all my manipulation and everything, and then I took her to one tile, this thing, and she went, and I was telling her it's a very cheap material, it is easy to maintain, this, that, the other, and I took her to a tile showroom, and she saw the floor, and she said, "Ye to bada naya lag raha hai." So I was not addressing the fact that she wanted new, and I was selling her cheap. And she had कि हाँ जैसे builders में 2x2 की vitrified tile है, तो जब मैं vitrified tile बोल रहा हूँ, in her mind, she is visualizing a 2x2 vitrified tile, and she is एक कैसा architect है कि जो मेरे घर में 2x2 की vitrified tile लगाएगा. So many times I have failed to pinpoint, and I have discovered later कि वो concern ये था, वो खरीदना कुछ चाहते हैं और मैं बेच कुछ और रहा हूँ. So I think that is the key. Yeah.
Interesting. I like how honest you are, Dhruv. Wonderful. And so, by your own personal experience, is there any project where you had to be completely out of your comfort zone and do something scandalous that you did not approve of, or the client demanded it, so you had to do it just following the trend? Samir, would you like to answer that?
Yeah, there have been a couple of instances where I've done something which is when I go to see it again, 5 years down the line, I wonder who's done this. Because it's completely against my thought process, everything, but I pick it up as a challenge. The client is very happy. So, we strive to make sure that the client is happy and, it's their dreams. So, we as architects and designers and stuff like that have to materialize their dreams. He's gone up from somewhere, what his background is, where he's come from, right? But he has a dream. So, make his dream a realistic thing, yeah, and make him enjoy it is what our aim or what we try to do. And with that, we integrate what, I've learned academically or through experience, which is quality and a sense that, a thing doesn't deteriorate over a period of time. Yeah. So everything looks new 10 years or 15 years from their projects, which look 10 to 15 years from, which we have done earlier and which look almost brand new. And the client is happy. So the same thing as using Italian marble, because I love Indian marble, and most of our projects have Indian marble and granite and, stuff like that. But there have been projects where we have done like 120% Italian marble. That means the chhat is also Italian marble. So that's...
Taking it a bit too far, right?
It's like that. I'm saying it's too far because those things are beyond your control.
Wonderful. It's very interesting. We are all pretty much in the same boat when we deal with pressures from the client, pressures from global trends, as they say, the global trends. And, but at the same time, I think we all have been able to incorporate local crafts as well. And we've been able to largely use our better judgment to assign the right material and the right technology and the right design sensibility to a project, I would say. So I think that, yeah, Samir, you had something to say.
One more thing about, global trend or, our trend, his trend, my trend, everybody's trend. I think we owe it to our clients, we owe it to society, is quality. Quality we should be proud of. We should not take shortcuts, right? So if you go overseas and you look at something and you say, wow, the bullet train is so fast, or you go down to New Zealand and say कि उसके बिजली के खंबे भी सीधे होते हैं सारे के सारे, or Russia, it's to do with quality. And I think what we as a society, as Indians, should strive towards quality, and our sincerity towards what we do. And we'll get there. Anything simple but with good quality is excellent. That's the trend.
Very well said.
So I'll add something. So
yes,
your
please.
point is very well taken. I'll give you a slightly different take, something from experience. So, so I went to Germany, Bau, and that was my first experience there. So there we saw windows, triply glazed, tight, very, very sleek sections, tall windows, everything. The same year we went to Bali, Samir and I were together, and we went to see this bamboo house, which had windows, which had bamboo windows, and it was a rickety window. It had, when you would close it, it would not close shut. So the point that I'm trying to make is that we should also look at what is the quality, like what is good quality. So it need not be, let's be flexible about what quality, like let's say, okay, I will do this, कि मेरा खंबा टेढ़ा ही होगा, and that is, since my intention is कि वो टेढ़ा है, so वो, like when fort was happening, I was mad with the contractor कि उसमें बहुत टेढ़ा मेढ़ा वो था, and I was really, I used to click photographs, send it on a WhatsApp group, look what your person is doing. अब वो fort बन गया है, people ask me कि किस contractor ने बनाया है. So I totally not to take anything away from, so मैं और दोनों अलग-अलग बातें कर रहे हैं. It's not contradicting. So his intention is absolutely correct. That stay honest to the intention, But I'm only adding is that you can define your intention. It need not be like just straight poles need not be the quality. You can have, okay, yes. So fourth, I embraced, that is the way we did that in 9 months. So I had to embrace imperfection in that project. That, okay, this is my design accommodates imperfection. So that was another way of.
And I think that is the beauty of it, the imperfection.
Well, I would not say that, but I would say that the design accommodates imperfection. I would have preferred कि एकदम वो दीवार सीधी हो, उसमें एक चीप लगी हुई हो. For 3-4 months, बच्चे आके वहाँ पे ना वो पत्थर निकाल लेते थे उसके अंदर से. So but that designer said it can accommodate the imperfection. So that is what I'm not defending it anyway, but I'm totally with Sameer that वो अगर अच्छी चीज बन सकती थी, तो बननी चाहिए थी, but.
No, we are actually saying, it's just a little twist of words.
It's just a twist of
so it's nothing to do with rough edge or anything like that. Quality means that stone that is imperfect does not fall out after a year, या गिर नहीं रहा है, या अपन ने design नहीं करा उसको ढंग से.
Correct.
So it should have a life, certain dedicated life to it.
Yeah, and I think bottom line of that, if you were to bring some intentionality to whatever you do, उसको casually नहीं हो, अगर आप intentionality डालोगे तो वो चीज अच्छी ही बनेगी. वहाँ तो माइनस में टेम्परेचर होता है, इसलिए ट्रिपल ग्लेजिंग होनी जरूरी है.
Sure.
बाली वाले घर में तो दीवार ही नहीं थी. Like there was literally the walls were like चटाई के walls थे almost.
Yeah. But it was to the region.
Correct. Yeah.
To the technology, to everything. So this is, again, we are talking about, what is, regional, right? What is it stays in that weather, and it is absolutely great because, it allows that little imperfection, allows ventilation.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You don't need, window is closed, but still there is हवा आ रही है थोड़ी सी, ठीक है? और अपन brick के अंदर में, we try to keep cavities and stuff like that. That is another way of doing the same thing.
So
right?
I think they are both saying the same thing.
Yeah.
It's about quality and context. So the quality, context, and the need for the need, the brief of the work required, that needs to be aligned. That's the job of a designer, right? And both my fellow panelists have explained it in a very nice way.
Yes, lovely discussion with you guys. And to my WhatsApping audience, please wake up. It's time for some Q&A. Any questions you'd like to ask, please? Yes. Can somebody please take the mic there?
Hello everybody. So my question is, any one of you can answer. Is there any project that is closest to your hearts and why?
I think all of them, it's a trick question. Yeah.
You should ask a mother who was your favorite kid. So I think the same quantity. आजकल तो 2 ही होते हैं, पहले ज़माने में ना बहुत होते थे, 7, 6.
For any reason, like इसमें ज़्यादा मेहनत लगी थी या ये मेरे स्टाइल के हिसाब से बना है इस तरीके से. Any favorite one?
Yeah, I'll tell you what. I got a piece of, somebody showed me a piece of land. In it's actually in the middle of Jaipur, middle of the city. And he said, Sameer, यहाँ पे घर बनाओ, 3 story चाहिए और इतने सारे rooms और ये सब. So मैंने, what are you going to use it for? He said, like a entertainment space. Right? I just need people to come over and stuff like that. And it took me a little while, right, to convince him and say, let's, you don't need to build anything. Why don't we just create nice garden with trees and stuff like that. It's like a little sanctuary in the middle of Jaipur. It's existing even now. And that was lovely. Because I used no concrete, I used nothing, I just used God's gift, to do everything. So that was a dream project.
Landscape project, right?
It wasn't a landscape project, it was, the guy had, see, we have so much. Nowadays, there's plenty, right? Everybody has plenty. And we don't know what to do with it, right? So we just keep on creating stuff which we don't need, okay? So the guy didn't need it. He needed a space where you could go and, he would just feel free. So I was able to translate, let's say, manipulate, do the words, whatever it is, to give him, not to build anything concrete there. And just have trees and stuff like that.
So
and
he
the birds
converted an architecture project into a landscape project.
Okay.
Yeah. Green project. So that was really a green project.
Thank you, sir.
You can just shout out. Yeah.
Congratulations, the topic is really exciting, but I really want to take it a step ahead to say innovative adaptations, the topic hai. Today what we are facing is a major change in a lot of things. So how are we, as organisms, we are adapting? I don't know how many generations we'll take, but how is our environment, are we thinking about small little details like even materials that we are using for internal finishes, like how we use paints inside and we stop the walls from breathing, the heat load from being active. And how are we actively thinking about it and what are we doing to have innovative adaptations to crisis like the rapid change in the climate that we are facing? Materials.
Okay.
Internal finishes. What are we doing to address this as a community? So this is basically to both of you as design people and architects, and also to Vartika.
Yeah. So I would like to touch upon this because it talks about what are being done in terms of materials. You use the word materials. So just like the way that what men makes is called manufacture, let me introduce you to a word which some of you might have heard about, biofacture. Biofacture is about creating materials with bioorganisms. Nature has given so much to us, and sometimes as architects, in pursuit of finding out the latest, innovative, and doing something new, we sometimes forget a very small thing that, that nature has already given us so much of things in terms of bioorganisms, which can be cultivated and, created as materials. And that's the biofacture, which is the global trend which is going on everywhere in research agencies, in top institutions of the world, where researchers are given this work to create materials out of bioorganisms. There are already several examples of this which the world has seen, and probably I'm talking about a time when a time which is not today and not very soon, but imagine something like this, a facade which is growing on its own as a biomass, and designers are working around it to give it a shape in such a way so that it can give space for the ventilation, it can give space for the transparent areas that we need for living. And this biomass is also growing, and areas which are not required to grow the organisms can be deactivated. And also, our food can be grown out of it. Those kinds of things are, happening in the world nowadays in terms of, yes, please, Gitanjali. See, these are the things which are still in the lab. The things that I'm talking to you right now, these are still in the lab. These are still in the research process. But when we talk about today's current situation, then whatever materials, the local materials are usually the most adaptive materials for any kind of building design and interiors. The local materials are actually set with that kind of a climatic condition, set with that kind of temperature control and all. So as my fellow panelists have already touched upon this, I will again go back to this. The context and the local aspect of it needs to be seen when we are designing any building and trying to take in materials which will, go with the nature. Like the purpose is to be as giving to the nature and not taking so much from the nature. And we all know, like the building industry, it is the generator of the largest, emissions. Some researchers have said like 38 to 40% of carbon emission happens through the building industry. So it can be going to a very long talk. To cut it short, I feel like in terms of materials, if you talk about what's happening in the world and globally in terms of research, it's the biofacture that is in. And if you talk about materials that would be highly adaptive to any local conditions, those are the ones usually seen to be going very well with the buildings. Yes, would you like to touch on?
So Gitanjali, very pertinent question, and I was just realizing after you asked the question that, we as architects are in the center of it all, So we are the Sutradhar. So on one way we have technology and material at our disposal. So most of us are not technologists. So most of us will not develop bio, when it is proven in the lab and that technology is proven, it will be given to us and all of us will use it in a different way. And so that's what we do. Technology is given to us and we use it. And then there is the client who has his aspiration. I'm just realizing that most of our society is, maybe our kids will be more sensitive to the environment. What I experience with a lot of my clients is that their primary agenda is that they have, from a small house, they have coming into a big house. Their house is, in many ways, they want it to be a commentary of what they have achieved in their life. So we have to be like Schindler, Schindler's List, if you have seen that Oscar-winning movie. So this Schindler used to work for the Nazis, and on the side he used to save the Jews. So as architects, the clients, most of them are not concerned about the environment, but we can be like Schindler and we can, अगर 800 रुपए का Italian marble या लग रहा है तो 200 रुपए की we can put in some insulation, some so I think that is the way I think all architects. When I was in college, first time we had an elective or a subject of sustainable design. So I'm talking about late 90s. उसके पहले नहीं होता था. Then when I think IIID had the national convention, that's the first time I heard that, people have done projects where everything is coming from a 200-kilometer radius. I had never heard of a concept like that. So as architects and as designers, there is so much to consider. And so sometimes you can, आप चादर यहाँ से खींचते हो तो वहाँ से छोटी हो जाती है. So sometimes I feel like that. So it is something which is very important for sure. I would say that, I mean, I'll give you another small example. This environment sustainable thing is such a farce. So we were invited by a company, I would not name the company. They flew us, Ankit was with me on that trip. He was not in that, he went to play to casino, so he was not there in that. So, वहाँ पर एक कोई उन्होंने workshop करी in which we were painting, and so everybody was given a board and we were painting and everything, and we put that in a grid and it read sustainable design. So you took a photograph and there was a very nice sustainable design, and then you took a photograph of where we were sitting. There was at least a ton of garbage there. So there were these unfinished paints in the plastic mugs, there were these bags, there was so much trash generated so that we created that particular thing. So I think it is a very, it doesn't hurt us right now. Environment friendly, अभी हमको गर्मी नहीं लग रही है अभी. जब वो गर्मी लगेगी, तब सबके सब, then everybody will wake up, then things will happen, then it will be a priority. Then probably we can wear it as a badge that we are a sustainable architect. Right now, in my experience, in our generation and a generation slightly above us, it is not something which for them it is not important right now. That is my experience, and I don't think, I mean, cannot speak for everybody else, but I am sure that there are my clients' kids, they ask me, कि Dhruv uncle or Dhruv bhaiya, what are you like, what is it, how are you doing something in our house, that this is this or this is that, So I think we can do our bit, but I think it has to be done at a larger level where the awareness level goes up. That's what I have to say.
Yeah, I just had a couple things to double click on. Firstly, Vartika, when you were, I completely agree, there's a lot of new materials being developed, but at the same time, I feel like the question of sustainability, I'm using it in quotes, is deeper than material or anything that's tangible. I feel like when we ask, like you kept saying we borrow from nature, we take from nature, but I feel like the most fundamental thing is to realize that there is no such duality, that there's nature and there's man. I feel like the first step is to acknowledge that they both work together, but how do we see a new framework for them working together in more synergetic ways? And another thing maybe like possibly to question is, how do we, I feel because care is something and craft is something, care especially is something that is intrinsically connected to sustainability. If you must go ahead, if you must use a building for long, you must be able to make the user care for it. So in that context, Dhruv, when you were talking about the Schindler's List, right? Do we need to be a Schindler, or are there ways of enrolling more people into a vision of care, into a vision of, like we have this much and this is what we can work with, this is what we could do. How do you find ways of enrolling people into that vision?
Working? Yeah. So see, we come from it's a very good way of putting sustainability and everything, outwards. So we are in an age of plenty. We got a lot of stuff. Sab cheezein apne paas mein available hain. ठीक है? And we work with a lot of people like, Dhruv, all of us around, all the architects around, we at least, give work to maybe about a couple of thousand people. Yeah? Workers, engineers, this, all that kind of stuff. So we have to incorporate, and we came from a background of meager sustenance. India, सबके सब अपने जैसे grandparents, सब कुछ, everything was reused, उसी चीज से वापस कुछ चीज बना देते थे, उससे कुछ और बना देते थे, वो चलती रहती थी, right? And we designed like that, we were innovative like that. So coming presently, we have lost all that, I feel, right? We have lost all that technique, that care. You're talking about care. So care, I think, is the biggest thing in sustainability. Yeah? You need to care, and we need to educate our co-workers, contractors, stone guys, because वो पत्थर वाला आता है, वो सारी चीजें काट पीट करके हटा देता है, क्योंकि सेट के पास में बहुत सारा माल है. So we as, we try to have least amount of wastage on a site, and we try to train those people. And it's a constant, struggle, and we are able to achieve also, there's success also, but you have to be constantly at it. And I think that's the need of the present, right? People whom you work with is to get them to get that word right, care. That was an excellent word.
Yes, so I would like to just expand on what Sameer said. I feel like it is about going back. What is sustainability ultimately? As Indians, I don't think like world में हमसे ज़्यादा sustainable कोई हो सकता है. We have all seen that in our families, just like the way that Sameer has pointed out. In our families, even when I was young at that time, my sister is sitting here. She used to wear my, we are 4 sisters, and एक sister की dresses, एक चीजें, and whatever is to be discarded at home used to be designing and decorating things out of that. कुछ भी waste नहीं होता था. When I say, doing something with nature, it doesn't mean bringing nature. It is about incorporating or adding more or replacing more of those materials with more natural things, more natural. So what I overall mean is that yes, it is about care. It is also about going back to the roots. And probably, we have come little far, and thus we have to look at the West to again go back to our roots. If we just take it in a very simple way and see things in this way, that okay, we just need to see how much we need and that much only we need to use, I think that will solve a lot of things.
I would just say that, very
Closing
short line, I
comments,
think everybody should we come to conferences, we talk about ये होना चाहिए, ऐसा होना चाहिए, इसको करना चाहिए. I think just do your bit, no? Do your bit, and I am sure you would maybe inspire a few people. That's all they will inspire in turn. I don't think we need anybody, one person should stand up and start a revolution. Just do your bit, do your, what Sameer said, no? Stand for excellence. आप अपना काम अच्छा करो, आपके चारों तरफ लोग होंगे, वो भी इंस्पायर होंगे कि यार अच्छा करेंगे. आप वेस्ट मत करो, आपके चारों तरफ लोग होंगे जो इंस्पायर होंगे कि यार ये जना नहीं वेस्ट नहीं कर रहा है. So there doesn't need to be something which we talk about at conferences and then nothing happens. Do your bit. You feel sensitive about something, do it. I would say, stand for that.
Wonderful. So, thank you everyone. From global trends, we went to sustainability and we were going on and on, but time has already run out. So thank you, Dhruv, Sameer and Vartika. Very interesting session discussing with you. Thank you everyone. Half of our audience has already ran out, but thank you guys. Thank you.
Thank you to our distinguished panelists and our moderator for such an insightful presentation and your words of wisdom. It was indeed a thought-provoking end to this afternoon. Please do visit the exhibition downstairs if you haven't done, and we'll see you all tomorrow for the second day at IIDC 2023, sharp at 9:45. Thank you so much.